Hello. How is everyone? Let's see. Says I have some drop frames on OBS, and I'm not exactly sure what that's about, so hopefully the stream, it says stream health is in perfect condition, so I'm going to just, I suppose, make sure everything's alright. Alright, so I'm finally back home from California. I don't know if I want to come back, or go back, rather, there anytime soon. I think I had enough of that place very, very quick. The amount of just overstimulation there is beyond comprehension. Albeit I wasn't, so I was in the LA area, and then I went to LA and kind of briefly went to Hollywood area, and I suppose it's cool to see it, I guess. But other than that, I would not want to be there very long. Like, ever. It is, that place is something else, man. The place truly is something else. It's beyond me as just a basic, weird, Midwestern dude. So, all right. But, yeah, no, I'm definitely glad to be back. I think at the end of the day, I am just a basic homebody person. Sisyphus. Ever toss a prostitute off a bridge? Definitely not. Definitely don't ever want to do that. Believe I have way more compassion for sex workers than that. Jesus Christ. But yeah. So definitely that's a big no-go for me, personally. Have you ever tossed a prostitute off a bridge? I hope you haven't, but Comrade, welcome back. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here too. I appreciate all you guys. This is I really like streaming. I also sent out, before we get into everything, I sent out a community post on YouTube saying that this next video that I'm doing is a lot. It's and that's why we haven't had a single video out for a month, I hope people are okay with that. I know it's a constant war of stimulation and just constant content at all times. And it is true. Like, the basic philosophy is quality over quantity. That is my philosophy. Problem is, that is not a profitable philosophy in this commodified world of just essentially commodified art and videography on the sphere of YouTube. It's tough. It's very, very tough. Yeah, channel analytics are down. Everything's down, and it sucks. But hey, listen, sometimes it happens, man. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it for now. So, all right, guys. So we can go ahead, start this up. As always, we always put on some nice background music. This is Pluma by Shinji Wakasa, ambient synth artist. Oddly, made some room in my mind. Yeah, man. Overstimulation, dude. It's a thing. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. All right. So, how have you guys all been? Granted, I haven't been away that long, it's just been about a week since I streamed last, but I'm definitely I'm super glad to be back. Like, beyond glad. So yeah. I thought about maybe just talking about LA. Has anyone here been to LA? To the LA area? And I think it would help, if we're going to discuss, because this is like, it would help if you're discussing these things from the context of someone who hasn't lived there, right? Because in my mind, LA is the most dystopian place I've ever fucking been. I didn't realize how, it's a cliche, right? Everyone says, oh, LA's dirty, there's homeless people everywhere. That's not the problem. Like, it's not the problem with LA, man. There are way worse things in my mind, just about how things go on there, than just that. I find, like, obviously we're big fans of cyberpunk. Been there once and left the same day. It's a wild place, man. It reminds me of Night City, except more tame. Like, in the cyberpunk lore, the universe, or it reminds me of, like, Blade Runner, except more colorful. Blade Runner is a little bit more bleak. It's a bleaker form of sort of the cyberpunk sphere of art. And LA is just... I think that place is holding on by a thread, and that thread being just this really weird ideal, and that's it. I'm actually incredibly surprised that people, like entertainers, still move there. Like, I'm beyond surprised. I don't think... especially the Hollywood area, right? Where the sort of apex of entertainment happens and stuff like that. It's beyond me. There's these 1960s and 70s buildings, right, that are really cool architecture, right? A lot of the general architecture around Hollywood kind of is a time capsule of sorts of sort of mid-century 1970s and 60s era sort of stuff. And it looks cool. It's got a lot of character. There's a big problem, though. It's completely torn up. It's wildly torn up. It's the weirdest place I've ever been. It's just wild. And I feel like LA is so vast. It is so giant. It is just, there is so much there. I've never seen a city so densely compact. Again, I'm a Kansas Cityan, so I'm from Kansas City. But the thing about Kansas City that's really fucking cool that I can't imagine this is like how LA is. Granted, I've never lived there, but you can't, like, there's only a couple places in LA where you would, like, really want to go in some ways, if that makes sense. There's little districts within the LA area that are the places that are just sort of, I guess, just nice enough to where you'd either want to go or whatever. Kansas City is not like that. We have places like all throughout the city. There's just different areas, and they're all different, but like almost in a way equally nice, if that makes sense. So you have a place called the Crossroads District. We have downtown Power and Light Plaza, and the Plaza. Plaza is actually kind of a famous place. There's a lot of people who've never been to Kansas City. They know what the Plaza is, oddly enough, which is kind of odd. Kansas City, you can go kind of everywhere. There's a lot of different places, and it's good. You're good to go. You can go experience that. You can go out, whatever. It's perfectly... I'm not even talking about safe. It's just like kind of just, it feels like not totally ran down. It's really odd, really odd. And then LA is like the most, it's like, yeah, it's beyond. I'm finding language to be completely insufficient of describing that place. But I went down the Hollywood Boulevard, the fucking Hollywood Boulevard, or the Walk of Fame area, whatever. It's like Times Square, but for Hollywood. And I suppose that was kind of like the coolest place, except that, again, too, it was just raw hedonism. That's like what it feels like. So see what you got? You ain't what you not. Yeah, I suppose that's true. All right. So, yeah. Went to LA for my mom. I went to help her out. My mother has an interior design business, and she does a lot of commercial work. And there was essentially a clubhouse for an apartment complex that my mom was essentially redesigning and modernizing, and we did that. And I didn't want her to go all by herself, and so I helped her out and I went with her. It was a fuck ton of work, but that's okay. No problem. All right. But I have been... So Colin Taylor says, I'm taking a natural law class, and he used to be a fellow comrade and somehow became natural lawyer, the Aquinas type. So natural law, who used to be the natural lawyer, the classical. So who are we? Natural law. I feel like there's a different definition for early political theory for natural law. Like that's just like that is like the debate, right? Like from Locke to Rousseau to oh Jesus, there's a million. There's a lot of political theorists who talk about sort of monarchy and stuff like that, and I haven't read them. I've read mainly liberal theorists in that sphere of things. My professor is natural in time. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know Thomas Aquinas' natural law, right? So a lot of political theorists, like, there is no sort of, in my mind, there is no, like, natural law. I think that's why political theory is interesting, right? It doesn't get talked about enough. Political theorists, and this is kind of helpful if you ask me, they talk about the same things, and they order everything structurally, if that makes sense, if that's the right word, where they're like, on property, on law, on natural law, on the general will, and they take these subjects and they write about these subjects, and all kinds of theorists do this. Locke does it, Rousseau does it, and they essentially add their own commentary to these things. And they try to create a body of work that represents this, a prescriptive theory, how the government should operate, how it, how the state operates today or at the time, how it should operate. That, in my mind, it's a little bit, it's useful in that regard, that sort of structural approach to it. Philosophy, obviously, past that, is a lot more elastic, and it, obviously, depending on who you read, and stuff like that. Isn't natural law null because of the is-ought distinction? Well, it just depends, right? You can discern between the is and ought, right? You can discern between what is and the description and what ought, the prescription. Yeah, I agree with that. Whatever is nature shouldn't really have any significance for normative law. Diderot or Diderot, sorry. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've only seen the name in text, but he's better than Rousseau, huh? I haven't read him. I suppose I find Rousseau more like really interesting rather than like someone I unabashedly agree with. When I read political theorists such as Locke and Rousseau, it's not about agreeance, right? It's not really what it's about. For me, it's understanding the framework in which, again, political theory and a lot of philosophy around politics is sort of formed from. I know there is usually I don't look at philosophy or theorists or philosophers as like who's better than them, and I'm not saying you necessarily do. I know that's a common thing, though. I know that's a very common thing to create a sort of hierarchy of which theorist is best, and yeah, right. One does not read Plato to necessarily agree, right? That's how I think with a lot of theorists. When it comes to more contemporary theorists, yeah, I definitely am a little bit more, I have more of that tonality, right? Which one is more correct? Because it's a little bit more contemporary, right? But I think when you're reading prior theory, it's a more historical endeavor in that respect, right? And again, in my mind, theory and philosophy, you're mining for gold. You're mining for gold, and you sift the sand away with the stuff that you don't like, or that doesn't make sense, or that doesn't seem correct. And that's okay. And you shouldn't have to. And there is no pedestal putting any theorist on, really, like any pedestal. It's really weird. It's a really weird worship apparatus that goes on with a lot of philosophy and theory, especially online. Oh my, especially online, because I think that even the idea of reading theory or anything like that is some like massive intellectual endeavor, and then they can be the authority on the matters. Because everyone wants to be the authority on what is and what ought ought to be, right? Listen, what is Marxism? What is online Marxism other than just the chasing the vanguard position? God damn. I mean, that's their entire purpose, is like, I want to be the vanguard. I have the right ideas about this, and it's a super egotistical endeavor. And it stems from a sort of worship apparatus of theorist. But yeah, anyways. Hypernova, hey, how's it going, my dude? I miss streaming. I really enjoy streaming quite a bit. This is one of my favorite things to do. Marxism is 0 books? Huh. Have you heard about the recent charges regarding Foucault being a pedophile? Oh, I think I briefly saw that. I think it was Jordan Peterson that shared that article. Did you guys see that? I don't know. I have no idea whether Foucault was a pedophile or not. Yeah, I have no idea. Matter of fact, I actually don't know a lot about Foucault's, like, I've never actually read Foucault. I suppose I know about, like, biopolitics and sort of that stuff, but not in any real deep sense where I've actually sifted through his ideas. But yeah, whether he's a pedophile or not, I don't know. And I'll be real, I don't really care. It's not going to affect it's not going to affect, like, how I read Foucault per se in some ways. Like, I'm looking at some of his well, it would affect the way that I read him for sure, but it's not, I don't think, like, his actual core philosophy is gonna, you know, like, I feel like that's a little bit separate, but whatever. Again, I don't look at philosophy as something like ultra, I don't know in that regard. I know there's a lot of, well, you can, right? So I see the issue with, like, something like Heidegger being a Nazi as well. But I don't think we shouldn't, like, not read these theorists, and I think that's, like, Jordan Peterson was making that argument. But I don't think Jordan Peterson's ever read Foucault. I think in order to make critiques, you gotta read, you gotta read them, right? And in that same sense, I don't talk too much about Foucault, and I apologize because I know a lot of people like Foucault. But I haven't read Foucault yet. So I know a lot of the base sort of nature of Foucault's thought and stuff like that. How would tossing out the sand to get some gold out of older philosophy apply to philosophers like Nietzsche, who have very, very potent... Oh, yeah, but that's exactly it. I think Nietzsche is the perfect idea. Perfect example of tossing out the sand, because yeah, Nietzsche in my mind is definitely like a proto-reactionary sort of, or I actually really think Nietzsche in some ways is sort of a proto-fascist thinker. I really do. I really do. I know some people hate that. He's sort of a proto-fascist thinker, but I like Nietzsche in a lot of ways, right? Like, Nietzsche does a lot of good stuff, and this is again the idea, like, you sift for gold through philosophy, and Heidegger is in the same boat, right? Heidegger says a lot of really interesting things that are very applicable. He contradicts himself. Nietzsche contradicts himself in regard to sort of some of his reactionary tonalities, especially, you know, I find Heidegger really contradicts himself a lot of the times with how he lived his sort of political existence. Yeah, find good ideas everywhere and apply them. I think that's exactly where, you know, I think trying to stay rigidly within a personalized context is not a good idea. The philosophy chat, how's it going, Marty? How's it going, dude? Oh, right. So for Eleftherios, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, for liberatory philosophy, I suppose it would probably just be the same. I'd apply that. Yeah, I think. Got more free books because I teach. That's sick. What books do you get? Wasn't Nietzsche? Yeah, so Nietzsche was against like nationalism, I believe. I think this is exactly where you sort of get into the proto-fascism, where very explicitly he's a proto-fascist, or sort of the sort of baseline beginning of some of the sort of hierarchical, I want to say like mythological fascist sort of things. Where this is exactly where like Nietzsche sort of stood in that regard. I don't think a lot of sort of contemporary fascism would exist without Nietzsche. And yeah, but it doesn't mean we throw Nietzsche away. Same with Heidegger. Heidegger was a very explicit Nazi, and there's all kinds of reactionary shit in Heidegger's writing. Oh, my camera's going out of focus. Sorry, guys. Like the Deleuze did it right. His selective readings on Nietzsche is very good for progressive politics. Yeah, well, that's exactly, and I actually I hijacked that language from Pill's video on Deleuze and Nietzsche, because it is the best way to describe that approach on, you know. Yeah, that is how we should approach this sort of phenomenon and endeavor. You have to do that, and that's not how it's done the overwhelming majority of the time. It's bad, and also you again. I don't like, dude. I really don't like critiquing a lot of theorists unless I fucking like have read them. You know, like that's one of the biggest things that I see. Jordan Peterson is the biggest fucking example of that. Like, he is monumentally horrible in that regard. I don't think Nietzsche laid down the foundations for fascism. I mean, maybe. That might be a fine line, though, whether he did or not, and it's probably not worth really going into. But no, I mean, maybe. Yeah, perhaps. I know there was a lot of, like, theoretical, I want to say, not hijacking, but support from Nietzsche with sort of the beginnings of fascism and stuff. But onto Spinoza. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know, man. I don't know if you think Spinoza is a total determinist? Yeah, you know what? In the sense that sort of everything within the sort of framework of nature is perfect. I suppose Spinoza does talk a lot about how what happens is perfect in some ways, right? And our conception of perfect should be within that framework. And in my mind, that is kind of deterministic. It's sort of it almost has a little bit of a neo-stoicism in it, right? I really like Spinoza. It makes sense that Deleuze found Spinoza to be one of the most important theorists, and Spinoza is. I really think so. I especially in the days of sort of Descartes. Not that Descartes is bad at all. Again, I don't look at these people as some fucking like they're bad, they're good, they're bad. I don't look at it like that necessarily. Schopenhauer's? Yeah, I haven't read Schopenhauer's commentary on Spinoza. Yeah, I mean, Spinoza's take on God would be a little bit confusing to a lot of people, I suppose. You know, God is an infinite set of attributes, those attributes being the sort of the perceivable makeup of the world around us. Like, if you can perceive anything, like it stems from God in a sort of monistic sense, right? Everything relates back to God. Everything is, you know, and that's sort of, in my mind, I think that's really significant, right? Because again, our institutions, the way we go about life, the way we conceptualize things is from a very Anglophonic, very English position, and that being of a very separated, jagged approach to empiricism or trying to, or like epistemology, but like not even necessarily epistemology, right? Where you're trying to understand like a logical course of things. Metaphysically, like we look at things like that, and you know, Spinoza's metaphysics, right? Or you know, maybe in a more relevant sense, who dive deep into the metaphysics, late metaphysics, being someone like Deleuze. I'm there. That's kind of where I am. I think that monism, or sort of kind of rejection of dualism, or at least the idea that things are actually separate in that regard, doesn't seem right, I don't think. And I think the fact that Spinoza sort of got that right, and but it's important to say that got that right, because there's plenty of thinkers who thought along those same lines. I don't know if you guys have read The Ethics. I actually am reading it right now, specifically. That's why I'm able to talk about it. The Ethics is written in a very sort of epistemological sense. It's and it's hard to follow in that regard. Again, it's translated from Dutch, or sorry. A lot of his thinking, he was a Dutch speaker, but he wrote in Latin, so that's already weird and wonky enough. And then it was from Latin translated into English. It's hard. It's a hard book to read in a lot of ways, and you have to sort of be a little bit careful about what you're doing. And again, too, like if you're reading the primary text, I always do this if I have trouble with reading text. I just go look at secondary sources online as well. You know, there's no reason why you shouldn't do both. Anglo metaphysics. What are your thoughts on Hume? Well, that's a good question. I don't know much about Hume's metaphysics. I really don't. I took a class going into Hume, but I think we just went into his commentary on cause and effect. Tyler Melton just got Ethics in the mail yesterday. Hell yeah, awesome. Della Roca's reading on Spinoza is... Oh, okay, a good guide for Spinoza. That's awesome. I'm really interested. The reason why I'm reading the Ethics as well, guys, is because I think the next thing that I'm getting into, the next book, is going to be Deleuze's commentary on Spinoza. And with Deleuze, understanding how Deleuze writes and stuff, I really want to read Spinoza first. I never read Spinoza. But is it true that Spinoza used to cage spiders and watch them fight to the death? I have no fucking idea. Probably in some regards. One of the few philosophers that thinks the PSR, I don't know who's the PSR, entails necessitarianism. Gotcha. Psychoanalysis of Jordan Peterson, his bachelor's in poli-sci in his first book, displays as be prescriptive. Yeah, I mean, I almost think that's a little I almost think that's a little bit too generous, right? To think that I truly, like, I am the most cynical of any public intellectual over someone like Peterson. I find Peterson to be fucking horrible in every way, like almost every way, like unbelievably bad. Like, and I think the thing about, like, Peterson is so clearly, like, in my mind, he is so clearly just a fucking complete fake. Like, I seriously, like, this dude is a fucking... And the reason I say that, like, so his first TikTok, and this is just, in my mind, the perfect, like, visual example of how Jordan Peterson goes about things. I don't know if you guys saw his TikTok that he made of his talking about all the philosophers, like Hegel, something, like he made a song about it. He spoke in this song. It sort of entails that you kind of know what the fuck you're talking about with philosophers. And Jordan Peterson will bring up philosophers, especially Nietzsche, to cite or to sort of explain what was good about their thought and why it's important. And he does this. He does this tactically. He's smart. He knows that if you cite a certain philosopher or you use their name in defense of your ideas, it just sounds a little bit better. And he knows this, right? And so he uses them in that regard, and he fucking bastardizes them beyond belief. I'm speaking to the choir. You guys all know this, but it's just beyond me. It's beyond comprehension, and he's just gotten monumentally rich off of it. Yeah, it really sucks. Peterson loves Carl Jung, right? Yeah, I believe he does. Jung, Nietzsche, Jung and Nietzsche are his kind of big thing, and he gets fucking Nietzsche so wrong it hurts. Or at least it's very fucking clear he's never read Nietzsche. Switching to part 2. David, I think parts 3, 4, and 5 of Spinoza Ethics on the Emotions is actually psychology. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. How's it going, David? Good to have you in here as always. Poverty of philosophy personified. Well, I think people... So a lot of public intellectuals, I don't think a lot of people have talked about this or realized this maybe. Public intellectuals, despite their field, you know, Richard Dawkins in biology, Jordan Peterson in psychology, they get popular off their philosophy. And a lot of the times their philosophy is really fucking bad. And people who have decent philosophy and good philosophy, they don't often get very famous or popular. They're doing work, critical work behind the scenes, and it doesn't take a sort of public role. And I'm fucking really cynical of that. That people's sort of... Yeah, I mean, that's just the best way to put it, right? Like, Dawkins, Sam Harris, they're like, Sam Harris isn't popular because of his fucking neuroscience. He's popular because of his sort of just philosophy on things, right? And half the time it's really milquetoast. You guys on the West have entered into the cyber age almost 2 decades ago. Why don't you make a video on hypermodernity? I have made a video on... Well, hypermodernity is sort of just kind of postmodernism, if you ask me. I talk about postmodernism a lot. Talking about Jordan Peterson, and we're bringing up postmodernity. Postmodernism is sort of talked about in this context, especially among conservatives or right-wingers, as something that's like collectivist. Like, I love that. That's my favorite thing. Postmodernism is some collectivist neo-Marxist system. Oh my god. Oh my god. Postmodernism, if it is truly a cultural logic, which that's the best way in my mind to at least acknowledge postmodernism, it's a cultural logic of hyper-individuality. And it's sort of modernity on steroids, right? Oh, is this a meme use? I don't know. Are you that Instagram meme page? If so, that's sick. I like your page. I shit on Peterson regularly on my Insta account. He's actually fairly dangerous because he smuggles traditional... Yeah, he does. Under the guise of being neutral and rational psychologist. Absolutely. For sure. How far along are you on Spinoza's ethics? I am on... You know, I actually couldn't tell you. I don't know why. I'm on section 4, pretty sure. Hitchens used to be based when he was a socialist. He seemed like a Trotsky. Yeah. Like a Trotskyist. Yeah, I think Hitchens, that's probably... Yeah. Have you or anyone here read Spinoza, Practical Philosophy? That's exactly what I'm up to next. That's actually why I'm reading the Ethics right now. Is because I definitely want to dive into Deleuze's sort of viewpoint on Spinoza. And I think if you understand Spinoza in the way that Deleuze does, in a sense, I think you get a really good idea of Deleuze. And that's my first sort of really, like, textual introduction into Deleuze. What is this common notions of Spinoza, and why is it in trend again? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily just in trend again. It's just that Spinoza, I think, says a lot of very significant things in regard to at least commentary at the time of modernity, where dualism was popular, right, with people like Descartes, and especially where in today's world we do think of things metaphysically as radically separate and not relating to each other. We really do. And the fact that Spinoza went into such detail in the 1600s is pretty wild. Wait, my therapist loves Peterson? Oh my god, makes me cry inside? Holy shit. That's disturbing. Austin H, good question. I think hacks become popular in philosophy. I think real philosophers should try to break into the... So, here's where we're running into... We run into, I think people who practice philosophy in a lot of ways are critical, very critical of how they do things and what is going on, and how maybe the totality of their actions may, you know, sort of essentially trying... I think a lot of these people are critical over the totality of their actions, if that makes sense. Like, Ray, and I mean that in the sense that when you try to do something, when you try to talk about something, when you try to approach something in a public context, when you try... But what happens is you end up becoming sort of... I'm trying to find the best way to put this. I don't think these people are interested in becoming enigmas, even subconsciously, right? I think these people really... A lot of people who do things behind the scenes in an academic context, I think they really do care about the field itself. And while it would probably be good for these people to have sort of a public presence, I think they're also critical in some ways that their presence wouldn't have the actual same effect. You know? Maybe it would become popularized in a sense and maybe potentially bastardized and misrepresented. Oh, what do you think of Spinoza's description of emotions, of the emotions, the affects? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Again, it sort of relates to his sort of metaphysical view of God and stuff like that, and within, yeah, definitely. And in that sense, his emotions sort of seems very deterministic, which is probably accurate. Spinoza does a lot of things, man. Spinoza sort of talks about like physics before physics was heavily developed, right? He talks about how bodies interact with other bodies and how they sort of... It's really interesting. Ior-ish, is that picture? You know, they're tiny pictures. Is that picture of Nick Drake's album, Pink Moon? Do you think maybe Peterson's... I absolutely love Nick Drake. Nick Drake is one of my favorite artists of all time. And I love Pink Moon. It's such a wonderful album. Do you think maybe Peterson's brabble about Nietzsche comes from secondary literature he's read? I mean, yeah, 100%. If he even has read secondary literature of Nietzsche. I really question that in some ways. I'm not going to lie. Time for a new therapist. A little bit inclined to agree there. I'm sure it's not, you know, I don't know, maybe. I'm sure he could be good, but yeah, that's a little... That sucks a little bit. Yeah, I'm writing a paper on alienation. Oh, okay. Any other suggestions for source information material? Well, on alienation, I think if you are going to talk about alienation sort of... Well, you know, Rousseau talks a little bit about alienation, but he means it in a different way. I think the beginnings of what we think of alienation comes from Hegel. I think Hegel's ideas on alienation is a little bit underrated because it's like beyond... Right, Marx's alienation is much more discrete and specific, that in a society full of social animals with production, alienation is found in the labor process and production, and it's a new special type of alienation found under capitalism. Hegel is way more broad with that approach. It still revolves in some ways around a social, social context, right? But Hegel's alienation kind of comes from like the idea of yourself, feel like your idea of yourself in regards to institutions, religious institutions, political institutions, and that you feel radically alien and separate from it. But again, good old-fashioned Hegel, there's sort of a dialectic involved where what happens is through that process of understanding yourself from the difference, here's an important part with Hegel's I think alienation. Marty, also, if Marty's still in here at the philosophy chat, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Hegel's alienation is kind of vague. But that difference between you and the institutions actually, ironically, is good. Because it the difference shows initially that you feel alien, but you're not actually alien. From understanding the difference of yourself and institutions, you actually understand how you're the same. It's the fucking typical fucking Hegel. Yeah. Fuck yeah, I love Nick Drake. Dude, Nick Drake is such a... Oh god, guys. Yeah, Nick, if you guys haven't listened to Nick Drake, dude, Pink Moon is such a fucking wonderfully beautiful album. We take Hegel for granted. There will never be a realm where we don't take Hegel for granted. I know that, like, even Deleuze and a lot of later theorists were like, they weren't fuck Hegel or anything, like, they weren't anti-Hegelian, but they definitely tried to move away from Hegel because of how popular he is, and even in that context, I think that, yeah. I actually don't, like, I'm not gonna lie, guys, we've, you know, it's still sort of the idea that Hegel is, like, still the top of the hierarchy among some people. I don't think so. I don't think so, especially among new emerging philosophy and theory. I don't think Hegel is. I don't think structuralism in general, in a Hegelian context, is where we're going. I don't know much about speculative. Is it speculative realism? Sorry, let me... Okay, yeah, speculative realism's a big sort of new metaphysical terrain, and I think that's probably where shit's going now. Also, too, again, I come from a very political background. And I find among political theory, especially among left thinkers, and left thinkers are just about the only people I want to contend with in this regard. I'm not going to contend. I don't contend with right-wingers. I mean, I'll contend with left liberal thinkers as well. But for sort of non-liberal, or at least sort of left-leaning liberal sort of political thinkers, again, on the left in general, it's Marx in a lot of ways still. Like, Marx is still sort of the head of that hierarchy. And while I don't have any... I love Marx in so many ways. Oh my god, guys. I mean, Marx is bastardized more than just about anyone I've ever seen on the internet. There's nothing more that I hate. I talk about this all the fucking time. I'm sure you guys are getting so sick of it. Dude, I just hear, like, dude, I'll hear, like, I assume that they're Marxist-Leninists, but I don't even think they understand what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, Marx is based. Marx rules. But, like, I hear people with, like, fucking, like, hammer and sickle emojis and, like, all of these flags on their thing. They talk about, like, we need dialectics and stuff. I'm like, do you even know what the fuck that means? Do you even know what the... Like, I don't think when a lot of, like, internet, like, Marxists, they talk about dialectics and they use it in the most fucking dumb fuck way ever. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And I've actually heard, like, it's fucking bizarre to me. Like, in my mind, there's nothing dialectical about Marxism-Leninism at this point. Like, there's nothing dialectical about what... Like, let this sink in. Marxism-Leninism in the year 2020 is inherently sort of anti-dialectical. I know I've talked about this a lot. I know other people have kind of shouted this from the rooftop correctly. It's not dialectical, motherfucker. Like, I don't... Yeah, well, every Marxist take Hegel for granted, absolutely. And then you have people who actually read, and these are people who don't even fucking read Marx half the time. There's a big group of people who actually don't read Marx, and they only read like Lenin. The entire process of sort of incorporating a political philosophy in the digisphere is so bad. It turns into radical, just complete aesthetics. It sucks so bad. I keep, I'm a political science major and a history major. I move away from politics every fucking day, and how we generally approach sort of political discussions, discourse, and how we can map politics. That's another thing, right? And how our traditional form of mapping politics on the left-right continuum of a linear plane of left and right, that is so radically insufficient, guys. It's bad. And what happens is it creates a sort of reactionary thought process on the left. That what happens is, what actually happens is we think of everything, whether something's good or bad, within the framework of left and right. And if we want to map things, we should actually be reflective of how politics and a lot of things interact. And it's not linear. We conceptualize politics and political viewpoints as something linear in a spectral sense. It's way more than just a spectrum, right? I think a lot of people can understand that, but they still do not approach politics like this. It's not good enough for it to be left and right. And then further, when it is left and right, what happens is people make value judgments on the left and right continuum that is already, again, try not to get too confusing here, that is already radically incorrect. So if you're like a lot of people, this is a lot of people's defense of their ideas, or when they critique other people, they're like, oh, but they've gone right. They've gone like right wing through the years, or something like that. I hear that all the time. Like that is such a horrible critique. That's so bad. But that's how we approach things. It really is. That is exactly how we do things. Yeah, Hakeem is dope. MLs can have good ideas, but only when they actually understand Marx. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch Hakeem all that much. I'm radically disinterested. Here's my approach. I'm actually extremely disinterested in people who only contend with Marx. I do not have any interest in that. I think that it is so bad. I think in some ways the most anti-Marxist thing you can do is actually not to purely contend with Marx. This is another thing, again, even the online realm of theory, so like politics is bad enough, right? Online theory discussions also kind of bad, but it's better. But people think theory is just Marxism. Like that's all they're like, you need to read theory, but like go read Lenin and Marx. They don't cite any other thinkers outside of Marx. It's fucking ridiculously stupid. And I'm tired of content creators and all that they do. This is again why I love pills, and again, this is what I try to do. They only make content within the realm of Marxism. There's so many fucking things outside of Marxism. There's so many goddamn things. There's so many things outside of Marxism that would positively affect an actual prescriptive sort of implementation of Marxism in a political sense, right? Simon, yeah, you're exactly right, but isn't a big flaw with that ML thinking assumes that all the answers have already been thought up? Oh, I don't know if I actually understand that, sorry. Yeah, no, Marxism-Leninism is flawed at the most basic levels. Absolutely. This is why I do not, guys, I do not, like, when people are overly eager to call themselves Marxist-Leninist, I don't take it seriously. I just don't. I really don't. Because Marxism-Leninism at this point is so extremely uncritical. I'm only interested in philosophy that is critical of itself and of other things. That's it. And I can't imagine being within a theoretical terrain such as Marxism-Leninism that has been around this long. It's fucking terrible. Also, too, I have the same problem. I'm not trying to be cynical here. I know these streams are very cynical sometimes. We talked about this. My problem with Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, it's hardly different. It's almost the same thing. It's like, no, we're going to be Marxist-Leninist, except we're going to incorporate Mao's idea of the mass line. What the fuck is that? That's hardly fucking different. Like, that's what do you mean? Like, again, I think about it this way. Theory? Okay. If your theoretical ideas are... Okay, if you have... At the base level, your theoretical ideas, when they're implemented, they're more narrow than those theoretical ideas originated from, right? So if your goal is to implement, in a political sense, a concrete material sense, the mass line, that is going to be much more narrow in reality than what you expect, I think. I think that's true for everything. So in my mind, when we want to approach theory, we want to try to change things in a theoretical sense, we should not start from a small position. We should actually be as broad, sort of, as we can. Because when you try to implement theory, it never ends up encompassing that initial thought. And I think to sort of make up for that phenomenon, that political phenomenon, we should actually think a lot more radically than what we initially do. And radical thinking, again, the most online brainworm thing, radical thinking, what is radical isn't whether you're trying to implement revolution. It's the most stupid fucking framework for radicalism, or like what is radical thought. That's terribly stupid. In my mind, being radical is being extremely critical. The BPP were based MLs, but they did actually read theory. I just don't... I think at this point, I'm just, you know, even within Marxism, I'm extremely interested... Again, I came from a pretty political perspective. I'm appreciating more and more things like metaphysical discussions, and even epistemological, rather than purely sort of like a sort of weird navigation around political theory. I really am. I'm even understanding that political theory is also really insufficient on its own. But yeah, I don't know. Join Possadism. We have aliens. Fear Third World War. Trotskyism. JK. I just don't. I don't think any. I don't care to identify among any. Sorry, I'm going to go down to some of these. Was going to add a disclaimer saying that I'm not referring to the lads that have only conquest of breads, but apparently you can't shift. Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. What are your thoughts on towards anarchist? I've talked a little bit about anarchism before. I haven't read a lot of actual pure anarchism. You know, sort of anarcho, like essentially like that realm of Marxist theory. What I do know from reading Marx and Engels, I've talked about this a lot. This is somewhat uncommon. I think obviously anarchists would argue this. I'm not an anarchist. I'm fucking not a Marxist-Leninist. I think at the core position, at my core being as far as politics goes, I'm a Marxist, but I'm a Marxist in a very broad sense. Not a fucking Marxist-Leninist. I'm not a fucking anarchist. I think anarchism is a terrain that is radically insufficient and dull. But anyways, anarchists get Marx more like they get Marx correct, if you ask me. Like, but that doesn't mean that they're right? It doesn't mean that anarchism is the fucking answer because they get Marx correct. That's not the fucking point. Of course they'll argue that, and that's a really dumb, really ideological point if you ask me. I think that anarchists get correct what Marx and Engels initially talked about with the dictatorship of the proletariat. Dictatorship of the proletariat didn't mean an actual governing dictatorship. There's a lot of academics have pointed this out too. There was a German language barrier when they approached that. They meant more than anything like an authority, right? So the general authority came from the proletariat, but that doesn't necessarily. That's a pretty decent difference. And in my mind, they probably are more in line with initial Marxism. Again, doesn't make them more correct. If anything, Marxism-Leninism tries to address the issue of, you know, again, how capitalism operates militantly, and they're correct there in a lot of ways, right? If anything, we shouldn't base what we should do off of who's more in line with Marx or Engels, but that's peak ideology, and that's peak rationalization. That's what Marxists do better than anyone in a lot of ways. And that, yeah. tankies are base and would take them over neoliberals in power anytime. Well, I would take fucking tankies over neoliberals any day, but like that doesn't mean tankies are like fucking base, dude. I don't like. First off, I don't like using terminology such as tankies. It's a little bit it's not. I think tankyism or whatever the fuck that means in an online context roughly means to a more authoritarian approach to Marxism. But in my mind, that doesn't get at the root of things like Marxist-Leninist, so I don't use that terminology. But I'm not a Marxist-Leninist. I think that, like, if you think that, like, being a Marxist-Leninist is still the answer within 2020, I don't know what to fucking say. I really, like, I've talked about this so much, how Marxism, what's really good about Marxism in a dialectical context is that through the dialectical context, you are adapting your theoretical, like your theory to change, to actual material change that is happening. How the fuck are you going to take a theoretical terrain such as Marxism-Leninism that has been around since, what, maybe like the early 1900s, and you're going to try to completely apply that in a context today? That seems so radically insufficient to me at the most fundamental base level, right? It doesn't mean that Marxist-Leninists don't have good ideas. It doesn't mean Lenin's. I enjoy Lenin quite a bit, but I really don't enjoy how Marxism-Leninism, the sort of theoretical terrain, is sort of implemented in a concrete sense. I really don't. I think it's super insufficient. I think if you're a Marxist and you're interested in Marxism, I think we need to start. I think if that is your approach, you should try to look outside purely within a Marxist scope of things. The goal is to change. The goal is to try to add more fruitful ideas and analysis that, again, is more reflective of a lot of what we're dealing with today. And what we deal with today is not the exact same as the early 1900s. And I know that gets you in trouble for saying that. Again, I know that is the most radical online brainworm sort of approach. But, yeah. So yeah, that's my talk about. I talk about this all the time, but Bubble Boy, yes, exactly. You need to adapt. How's it going, my dude? Adapt the concepts to fit your socio-historical context. You're just kind of dogmatic. That's exactly it. I mean, that's exactly it. If you don't, and that's in my mind, this is why I'm radically disinterested with how Marxism operates today. It's so not. No, I'm not. I don't care. I don't care about Marxism. And a sort of I think we're sort of beyond that scope right now, of pure Marxism, mind you. I enjoy Marx a lot. I enjoy Lenin a lot. This is the tragedy of it all. Politics is terrible, man. It is so insufficient at whatever the fuck it tries to do. Yeah, we need new ways, and we need new ways to approach this, and I think those new ways of approaching is leaving sort of how we approach that framework of politics and trying to make new approaches to modes of thinking and stuff like that. The political answers exist outside of politics. All right, I don't think that's philosophy. What are the particular shortcomings of Marxism-Leninism? Like, differences in today's world render Marxism-Leninism insufficient? No, that's a good question. I mean, there's a ton, right? Like, and clearly, like, even if I want to take a hardcore Marxist perspective on historical materialism, this is how Marxists, they argue how we should do revolution is based on the shortcomings of initial implementations and trials materially. Well, okay, let's apply that logic to Marxism-Leninism. Fair enough. They lost. They just fucking lost. It's a tragedy in some ways, right? Like, it sucks that the USSR fell apart in a lot of ways. I think political experiments like that are super necessary. China's still around, but it's definitely not a socialist state by any means. Again, if we're using Marx and Engels' definition of socialism. Cuba, same thing. It doesn't mean that China or Cuba are bad or good because they're inherently not socialist, or they are socialist. That's not the point. It's just descriptively, that's just not. Accurately speaking, it's just they're not a socialist state. And again, they lost, and we lost within the framework of implementing things through the theories of Lenin, and sort of the dialectical process in which he approached Marxism, and it just didn't work, right? And so you have to change that framework, and that could, I don't know exactly what that is, right? Exactly what that change should be. People have proposed Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. I find Marxism, Leninism, Maoism to literally just be Marxism, Leninism, except like with Mao's thought on the mass line, but that's it. Like, that is it. It seems radically similar. It doesn't seem very different. It seems like Marxism, Leninism 2.0. But yeah, in my mind, it's sort of that trial, and again, through the perspective of historical materialism, it technically failed. What about the U.S. economic strangulation of Cuba? Well, absolutely, that's part of the problem, but they had no way of combating that. A lot of people will try to defend. I'm not sure if I'm sure you're not doing this, David, but I notice a lot of people sometimes when they talk about like Marxism, Leninism, and people talk about how it's like, okay, it's sort of insufficient at applying things today. They're like, well, like they failed because the U.S. the U.S. like put sanctions on them, and there was a complete Cold War, and you know, like they had the entire Western powers. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like that is the point. They lost. That's exactly it. Like you're answering your own question there, right? It's like, in my mind, it's really, really, really weird. Great answer, thanks. I find MLs kind of cringe, and all too often, the majority. Well, the majority. To be fair, it's not just Marxist-Leninists. The majority of politics online, left politics especially, is cringe as fuck. It's terrible. It's horrid. It's horrid. But Marxist-Leninists can be especially cringe at times. From that lens too, it's another thing that confuses me with specifically Western Marxist-Leninists. Like, they don't have any examples they can point to within the imperial core or post. Yeah, I mean, yeah, in a lot of ways, right? There's a lot of things, especially when you try to apply how things operate today, that are not, they're not applicable, right? If anything, things are worse, you know? Like, if anything, in my mind, Marxism, Leninism operates as a coping mechanism of sorts. It's too easy of an answer that we need to organize and work towards revolution and stuff. Like, in my mind, that is so, we are so beyond that. Politics, Western power, that's beyond the scope of initial interaction, right? We're dealing with things so far beyond that right now, that it's going to take more than just Marxism. Fucking, I know I get the wall for saying that, and I know I'll be. I'm told that. I know you go on r/com. I saw on r/communism a meme that said postmodernists get the wall first. I guess they'd probably consider me a postmodernist. I don't think people are postmodernists. I think postmodernism, again, we discussed this earlier, it's a cultural logic. It's not like a fucking positive political ideology. Like, yes, we need postmodernism. Like, that's just Jordan Peterson-esque shit. What are your thoughts on the post-Marxist, if you're familiar at all? Well, roughly speaking, like, you know, people like Badiou and Zizek I would consider like post-Marxist. I haven't read a lot of Badiou, but I've read a lot of Zizek. I sort of find post-Marxist, if I'm thinking about this correctly, post-Marxist sort of just kind of, in some ways, being a little bit like critical theory in some ways. I know people say they don't say this. I find critical theory to be a little bit of a return to Hegel, even though they try to critique Hegel, right? I find post-Marxist to be a little bit of a return to Hegel. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense, if you ask me. Because Hegel, whether that be his idea of alienation, whether that be his theory, is a little bit more broad than Marx. And this is a good thing and also a bad thing. The good thing about Marx is he was specific about a lot of things, like the labor process within industrial capitalism, right? And in that sense, he was right about a lot of things. The bad thing is it's also a little bit narrow. It's hard to apply Marx's analysis on capitalism in a Western sense today, in a more contemporary way. where like service orientated post Fordist capitalism, or we can apply Marx much more presciently to things like still very industrial capitalist countries, in the global South or in the East or something like that. Yeah, it'd be like Zizek Badiou. Oh, okay. Who's my spiritual Italian dad? Antonio Negri. Yeah. So I haven't read Badiou. That man. That dude's on my immediate list for sure. I'm reading Spinoza, and then I'm on to Deleuze's book on Spinoza. But Badiou is definitely did say that about a return to Marx through Hegel, and that, in my mind, that's still it. The capitalists beat the socialists not because the system of capitalism is better than socialism, but because of capitalist economic propagandistic military power. It's not over yet. Well, I might change. I might be a little bit more critical than that. I think capitalism, like, okay, not in a moral prescriptive sense, right? Like, I think the I think the I think the intention of what we saw in China and Russia infinitely better, much well, not infinitely, maybe much better than our approach to capitalism. But and in that sense, capitalism was better in a global way, right? I sometimes think we're not critical enough about our conceptions of things. And this can lead to some really big shortfalls, right? So capitalism, in many ways, I don't think we're all right, I'm trying to find the words to describe or try to put this into words. There's a problem with how we approach Marxism today. And Marxism of the past, in a way, sort of posits a position that a sort of, I think, especially early Marx, there's a humanist position. And I think this humanist position that Marx talks about is a little bit, it sort of, again, creates the idea that people naturally will move away from capitalism. That is a fatal flaw, as we can see. That's not true. The questions now is like, why the fuck do people actually, working people, prefer capitalism over socialism? They do. This is the thing. This is why I'm maybe critical a little bit, David, about the language. Capitalism is better than socialism in that regard. And in an abstract, objective sense, no, probably not. But the problem is that these are the questions that we should be asking. Why do most workers prefer capitalism over socialism? In a humanistic context, if we're not thinking deterministically, why haven't we fucking rose up yet? And in my mind, some of those answers can be brushed away with the idea that capitalism just essentially pushed down the hammer and it sort of just destroyed socialism at the core. And I mean, that's partially true. And I'm looking at this pluralistically. That is absolutely true. Like, we're dealing with an incredibly imperial system, like imperialistic system that crushes any fucking dissent. But the other problem is that socialism did not address the immediate, maybe in a psychoanalytical way, immediate libidinal wants and desires of workers. Whether those desires are artificially constructed via capitalism, that's probably very true. I would look at that sociologically. But the questions in my mind, we're not even critical enough because of capitalist propaganda and miseducation. I mean, yeah, that's part of it for sure. But also, in my mind, it's also the failure. It is absolutely because of capitalistic propaganda and miseducation, but it's also because of the failures of the attempts to get away from capitalism. It's the failures to incorporate a system that can actually facilitate and try to move away from these very libidinal responses to things like consumerism and stuff like that. It's not critical enough in my mind to think that it's just because of capitalist propaganda and miseducation. Although that is very true, it's very big. A lot of critical theory does a very good job of explaining this. I like Marcuse's take on radical individuality and sort of sort of a collectivist capitalist outlook, but yeah, I mean, we can't. I think that's something that's a fucking huge problem. If you want to move away from these things, it's important not to. It's important not to get to in line with a sort of singular view of that, right? Yeah, like West German compared to East. That's sort of that's a really good generalization. Like West Germany, sort of it. They sort of had this. They sort of had that very libidinal approach to things. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you for the $3, my friend. I hope that sort of answers. I know that's sort of I hope that although that probably wasn't a question, but hopefully I can add some more context to that, more clarity. But yeah, I think it's important to I think we are not very critical of how we approach things a little bit in our explanations and stuff. But because of capitalist propaganda and miseducation, absolutely. It's a big problem for sure. A big problem that sadly socialism hasn't overcame. And in my mind, it's important to point out that it's not just capitalism at that point. The opposition to capitalism is also a problem. I guess I'm a Hegelian in that way. I see processes done via contradiction a little bit. Yeah. Someone that grew up poor, most people just want or just to make it to a decent life within the system. Exactly. That's totally true. Like, this is the problem where this is why. Okay, I was curious, guys. I was actually thinking about talking about this on stream the other day. I was really curious. I'm gonna rewind this. We'll put in a new cassette tape. How about that? I was reading some manifestos of communist parties in the West. I can't remember. I read quite a few. I think one in India. I think one in one in Canada. I think there was a couple. They all said this, and I couldn't imagine anything like more wrong. They essentially were saying, they all within different language was all kind of saying that, like, we represent what the workers want. I'm like, that is so wrong. That is so wrong. These communist parties, they said, like, we represent what workers want. No, you actually don't, and that's the problem. The problem is that workers in some ways want to be oppressed. They want to be quashed in a way, and the problem is that they want to live just a life within the system. They don't want radical unfamiliarity. How do we get past that? I don't know, but that's where we should approach it. We should not approach it from the idea that workers want to live in socialism, because they don't. It's very clear that they don't. I think that is in every manifesto of these parties. I was curious. It's actually a really good read. I can't remember what parties, but they essentially, all in different language, are like, yeah, this is what, we are the representation of what workers truly want. I'm like, no, you're not. You are not. And that sucks because I think in a lot of ways, we should want what a lot of the communist parties in the West want, but that's just not how it is. And it sucks. And this is, in my mind, where theory around psychoanalysis and social psychoanalysis at that is kind of important. Again, maybe I'm a post-Marxist in that sense. Zizek is, I think, interested in those questions. Deleuze, in some ways, is very interested in those. Yeah. Most workers don't know what socialism is. Well, let's. Yeah, that's a problem. They don't know, but people who do know what socialism is, they do. They understand that socialism, in the most abstract sense, is a much more democratic system as far as. I mean, there's so many different forms of socialism, but in the most abstract sense, maybe it's just like, I know this is sort of a normie take, but yeah, it's an implementation and adding of democracy to the workforce, right? This is a normie, fucking practical political take, but I still think that's a decent idea of what socialism is in the abstract. I think a lot of workers do know this, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just that process of getting to socialism, it's not worth it to them. They'd rather They would rather just be able to go home and enjoy their commodities. They would enjoy consumption. They enjoy providing for their family or having that sort of relationship within capitalism more than they ever would potentially overthrowing capitalism. In my mind, that's where the questions, that's where our potential endeavors should be based from. I'm dyslexic too. No problem, man. No problem. Let's find a different cassette, huh? Let's find some different music. Think. See what we got here. Here's my cassette box. All right. I guess this album is called Patricia by Six Missing. Cool. Nice new ambience. All right. Let's see if we go. All right. Okay, back to chat. Away we are. This change probably needs to be lived and enacted, or more focused critical theory while reducing any participation. I find critical theory, what critical theory tries to do in a lot of ways is try to understand why the fuck, and like the Frankfurt School, in my mind, the origins of it really kind of in some ways like, why the fuck, why is the USSR losing? Like, why aren't people just, flocking in droves, away from a very clearly authoritarian system, such, and yeah. I mean, at the very most abstract, there's so much more to critical theory than that, but I think that's a big question within it. Okay. This change probably needs to be, the education of workers on the reality of social is certainly needed. I think it's needed. I think that's something we've been trying to do forever. Doesn't mean we should like stop doing that. I think it's, again, it sucks because it gets more complicated and more complicated. Sure, let's actually educate. I think in my mind, modes of thinking are what's really important here. This is why I think philosophy is inherently more radical than politics, because philosophy, at least, or theory, allows us to approach things within different frameworks themselves, right? We approach things within the practical political sphere in a sort of agnostic or blind sense. We don't actually understand, a lot of the times, the theoretical framework in which we are approaching politics. When you get into theory and philosophy, you start to get at the roots and the sort of fundamental framework in which you are approaching things, and teaching those different frameworks, modes of thinking, dialectics, maybe empiricism, Lockean empiricism or metaphysics, whatever that may be, monism. Those things are more important in my mind. Those things have not been done. Is it going to solve all our issues? No, I don't know. But that's why I think philosophy is inherently more radical at this moment. Correction, socialism presents work for the masses. Capitalism presents work for the masses, which is the chance of earning more. Yeah. Hard quote with, they're cheaps. Yeah, that's exactly right. Bubble Boy. Oh yeah, on a practical level, education study groups are vital to any revolutionary left-wing project. Yeah, basically everyone needs to start a reading group so I can join them and nerd the fuck out. I've thought about doing that for Patreon. I'm so busy, and these videos that I make are taking so long. I haven't put out a video in a month, and that's like the longest I've done that. And Once I graduate from university, I will definitely start doing regular reading groups with my Patreon. And I'm actually looking forward to that. Okay. M. Howie, hail. How's it going, my friend? We forget that most people, workers, don't know many things. It's true. Meaning of words, concepts, we take that for granted. They are given false ideas through propaganda. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to start a reading group. Yeah, I don't even know how to approach. I've never been in a reading group before, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit weird in that regard. I've never been in a reading group. Why does Deleuze like Spinoza so much? Well, so I think I can't actually speak on that. Hopefully I'll be able to speak on that much more in the next few months. But essentially Spinoza sort of I think essentially just Deleuze adopts Spinoza's metaphysics in a different way, in a more processual way, the most abstract level, relating to a singular thing, or of a singular thing. Except, I suppose Deleuze puts more emphasis on like pluralism or multiplicities. But I have not read Deleuze. I gotta be very careful. I don't know exactly, you know, I know about these philosophers, but if I haven't read them, I try to be a little bit careful with my words. Yeah. Woodworker really believes you have a chance of earning more income relative to inflation has been... I love to do a reading group. Yeah. Check out my Patreon if you're interested. Oh, gotcha. I don't think that's philosophy. Have you been putting out videos? I don't know. I think you mentioned to me that you were putting out videos. If you have, guys, go check them out. This music's... I haven't listened to this cassette. This music gives me Sigaros vibes. I don't know if you guys listen to Sigaros. Sigaros is an incredible fucking post-rock band. But, Icelandic post-rock band at that. Alright. Did a couple, yeah. Gotcha. Alright, cool, man. I still need to check those out. I apologize. I haven't gotten to them. I'm so fucking ridiculously busy. It's hard. I apologize, though. I'll get to them. Theory Circle on Discord is a pretty great, well-organized Marxist theory Discord. You should go check out. They're more into Lacan and such than Deleuze. Interesting, okay. Ever read any Stoicism? Never read, well, I've never read, like, actual Stoics. Yeah, I've read in a sort of secondary context about Stoicism and for classes. Zonzi is starting a reading group to do on his streams. Oh, yeah, I talked to Zonzi, I believe he was, I think this was a couple months ago. We still have not set anything up. I think he was in my stream one day and he messaged me and he wanted to talk. And I've asked him to do, I was like, all right, well, let's do a collab stream. And he hasn't gotten back to me. I remember he said he was like, all right, yeah, I'm a little busy. He's like, message me in a little while. I messaged him, I believe, I could double check. I gotta check my messages. I think I messaged him like a month later and he didn't respond. So I don't know much about Zonzi, but I follow him on Twitter and I think he occasionally might linger around in here. Tossed you a sub. We'll take a peek at your videos later. And I don't think that's full. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. Bit disorganized, though. Lovely. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. What's his... I hear him talk about, like, speedrunning. I think I did talk to him. I talked to him about Twitch. I think he said that he streams on Twitch. I remember roughly bringing up to him, streaming on Twitch is a really bad idea, in my opinion. I don't think streaming on Twitch is ever... I don't think you should ever do that, and for now. Like, especially if you're a smaller content creator. Like, that's the worst thing you could do in my mind. And I did it. I did it for the longest time. I did it for, like, a big chunk of this channel's existence. But now that I do it on YouTube, it's much better, and I can connect with more people, and I can at least interact more with my immediate YouTube audience. And I suppose for me, though, my biggest thing, I make videos. I don't know exactly what he does. I think he's primarily a streamer, although he does have a YouTube. I don't know. I see his tweets, but... Dino Crisis, Final Fantasy VII at the moment. He's an Irish Republican Socialist variant. Oh, okay. All right. Cool stuff. Oh, man. Oh. When us your debate with Vosh. Oh, God, I don't think I would ever. Oh, no. I talked to Vosh, I guess. I don't even know how you approach, like, okay. YouTube, internet streamers, political streamers. Oh, fuck. I suppose in some ways it's a little ironic because I guess I'm a little bit of a political streamer. Am I? I don't know. Political streamers fucking suck. It's almost unanimous that they all fucking blow in some ways. Vosh, I think Vosh, the things that he interacts with, I think if my understanding, I don't watch a lot of Vosh, this is the other problem. Or like Destiny or streamers that do. One thing, I'm really disinterested in the cultural sort of online drama that they sort of prop up. I hate it so fucking much. I can't. Oh God, guys, I can't like dumb Twitter accounts going on Vosh, and then like Twitter drama and talking about all that. Like, what the fuck? It's the most radically unhelpful thing, and Vosh just gets rich from it. And then like it's just so fucking stupid. Like, what did I see on Twitter the other day? I really ought to. I'm not gonna lie, I really need to unfollow these accounts. There's a couple accounts that I follow because they're into theory and they quite like my channel and I like their initial tweets, but the amount of interaction with like Twitter, like left political drama is fucking terrible. I see a lot of like tweets that, what was this stupid fucking account like Mel or some shit? Like everyone was going in on like some person like went on Vosh recently who's like, I don't fucking know. Was she defending China or I don't know, fucking talking to like the Uyghur genocide or whatever's not happening? I don't know. Anyways, I see this all the time. Random Twitter accounts that have popular followings that will occasionally pop up on my timeline will go on Vosh or they'll go on some stream, and it's some huge spectacle that everyone gathers around for, and it gives them some weird meaning. Korea, is that right? Oh God, I don't give a fuck. Well, I mean, I do for the sake of conversation. Yeah, watch me argue with a 2K follower Twitter account for 2 hours. Yeah, that's just it's just pure fucking spectacle, and it's so stupid. So if I did go on Vosh, I don't know how I'd even approach that. There's no subject that I would be interested within within politics at large that I would talk to Vosh about. If anything, I would try to introduce his audience to like theory at large, modes of thinking. Maybe I would go with the thesis of that the most political thing you could do is like not like the most politically impactful thing doesn't involve an immediate discussion of politics. It's too simple that way. Yeah, it's a massive exhibition that generates nothing except engagement. That's exactly why Vosh is blown up. And ironically, I get a little bit more irritated with all the people who bitch about Vosh than I do actually Vosh himself. I really do. The amount of people who just do nothing but bitch about Vosh online, I see it all the time, and I need to fucking unfollow every fucking account that does this. I just hate the interaction of like stupid online political discourse. It's dumb as fuck. I hate it. And it's so unhelpful. Defender of Genocide Mel. Is that that account that you may be able to pull some of his followers? I think hopefully the best thing I can do is try to point out that the spectacle in which political discourse takes hold is so fucking unimportant and unhelpful. like that's my goal. It's just fandoms and anti-fandoms. I think that's it. Yeah, but if you guys are interested, go blow up Vosh's DMs. I'll go on there. I'll destroy Vosh. Not really. I'm not gonna do that. But I would like to talk to streamers in that sense. I would like to sort of break down. I don't know. I just don't know how I would approach that. I'm pretty anti-political streamer, sort of. The framework in which it operates. I don't care about Vosh as a person. I don't care about Destiny as a person. I don't care. Who they are is irrelevant. It's the framework in which they operate within and how they approach things that's a problem, right? To be honest, it isn't remotely praxis, but it would be funny to bait him into saying dumb stuff as well as making good points. And yeah. So again, I'm disinterested in I think I see your point. But I think the approach yeah, I don't think the approach would ever like corner Vosh in anything or any streamer. It's just maybe I would point out with how they approach this stuff is pretty insufficient, and I think it leads to sort of political hobbyism. It's the best way to put it. Vosh is a detriment, though. Well, it's like I don't think about it as Vosh. I really don't. Like it's not like I see what you're saying, right? We're constricted by language, so I know what you mean. But if I could try to like find the more potent problem with Vosh, it isn't Vosh. It's like political. It's debate lord political streamers. I don't watch much, but the little I've seen of Hassan seems perfectly fine. Like Hassan seems just like it's political hobbyism, but it's a little bit less sectarianism, sectarian political hobbyism. If that makes sense. And that I enjoy more, but I suppose Vosh's audience, they want blood sport. And that's the other problem is like, all right, if I go into this, if I go into this, are they even going to listen to a thing that I say? So here's an example. There's a I've talked about this a little bit. They're good dudes. I know both of them. Live in the same city. Cool dudes. Went to school with one of them. Hardly spoke a word to him until he started a YouTube channel. But the Vanguard, they're a political YouTube channel. Good dudes. I think the content that they make is often really, really bad. A lot of their content revolves around X online person destroyed, or like did they have tag words and all their things. In my mind, that is just they're just completely creating an environment of political spectacle in that way. I don't like that at all, and I think that sucks. But I've been on their stream. They'll stream. I've been on their channel a couple times. And there was I stepped in for a debate, and my goal wasn't to debate. I think they invited a pretty high level, very well known left political commentator to talk to or to debate a guy named Franco Analysis who does like, and I want to maybe guess. I don't know much. I haven't. Yeah, you watched that. I try to convey, I try to get outside the question of whether AOC is like a sellout or not. Like, of course, like if your definition of a sellout is that you have to sacrifice your political ideals within the system, I'm like, every fucking politician's a sellout. At that point, we should just try to critique the form of which things are happening rather than the content. And it did not go well. I got death threats. I got like 5 death threats, guys. I've never had that happen. Like I've gotten, I'm pretty lucky, I think. I'm a tiny channel, so maybe not. I got a couple death threats. I got told, guys, this had nothing to do with the Vanguard. Well before, I was like a really small channel. Some dude messaged me, some random account messaged me and said, I know what car you drive. And he pretty much listed my car in the color. And I was like, how the fuck do you know that? I didn't say anything, but I was like, how the fuck do you know that? So that was weird. Other than that, though, haven't gotten any like really weird, like violent threats or anything like that. But, I went in there and said, like, it doesn't matter. Like, the question of the debate question was whether AOC was a sellout or not. And you can see the framing of that. How bad is that? How, like, it's so, like, in my mind, who gives a fuck? Like, absolutely, that's not the problem. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, fucking AOC has to concede all kinds of things. It's the process of working within a fucking very jagged political system. It just does nothing to moralize that system at large. and to make that system a moral like a moralized network of people, and you critique those personalities within that system. In my mind, that is so insufficient. And anyways, they did not like that, because again, there's a jouissance to that. It feels good to have an arch nemesis politician. It feels good to support certain people, and I don't like that framework of politics again, but that is politics in so many ways. Hola, amigos. How's it going, my friend? The issue is the socio-political economy of Vosh and its hate clout. I don't think it's Vosh, but yeah, it's the economy of hate clout, and people who work within the debate bro sphere like Vosh. Absolutely, that's how it works. Yeah, no, it's finding weird Twitter accounts that have somewhat of a following and like shitting on them or partaking in a debate with them, and it's just like, I don't know. But anyways, if you guys want to see me on Vosh, fuck it, I'll do it. I'm prepared for all the fucking horrible shit that might come my way. I'm not going to. I think the idea, I think it would hurt worse. I think the one thing, the refusal to actually like partake in a spectacle like debate actually would piss people off more, I think. I've realized that trying to get away from the way things happen and trying to change the approach to conversation and discourse pisses people off more than what you have to say regarding that discourse. I have no idea how to get a hold of him. If you guys want to go in his discourse or something like that, feel free. If you want to see it, I'd probably just talk to him about like trying to, if he wants to be serious and he wants like I'll just take him at his best points, right? Like I'll just take him at his absolutely like I'll take him. I will not like bastardize anything he has to say, right? I'll take him at his absolute best points. Like, look, if you care about workers' emancipation, if you care about these things, I think just moving away from all debate like that is completely necessary. Move away a little bit from the approach to pure politics. I can't imagine how like impactful that would kind of be for someone like Vosh. Vosh has a huge audience. And I think if you can approach these things and try to convey a position where like moving away from how politics are done right now, that's kind of a powerful thing. I think, I don't know. It's hard to fucking measure impact, but I think that's what, yeah, Ben Sir's right. It's a meta debate. Debate against the debate, that's right. I think it's to be really good conversation for people to see. He might do the thing he did with Hakeem, where he just agreed with him. I didn't see that. I don't know much about Hakeem. How did that go? Did Hakeem, I would imagine Hakeem just like, someone like Hakeem, isn't Hakeem like interested in debate? I don't know though. I have no idea. Because I know Hakeem's just sort of like a political YouTuber. You talk to people like President Sunday, Hakeem. Yeah, no, I would love to talk to all these people. I'm a little bit of I haven't talked to a lot of YouTubers like that. If you make Vosh a Spinozist, I will get your highest Patreon subscription. Right, I'll fucking work on it. How about if I can get him to really read Spinoza? How about that? Hakeem is the only good ML, pretty open-minded and well-meaning, just ignorant on a few fundamentals. Well, yeah, I'd have to like look at like check Hakeem out. I would imagine open-minded or like well-intentioned Marxist-Leninist. I think the problem with a lot of like even well-educated, well-intentioned Marxist-Leninists is that they don't go outside of Marxism-Leninism. Dude, go on and tell Vosh to read Fang Numina for the meme. Yeah, Vosh doesn't read. I've heard people tell me Marxism-Leninist is Stalinist propaganda. Oh no, that's not good. It's bad. Yeah, I consider like Stalinism, like, or whatever that is, just a form of Marxism-Leninism. Marxism-Leninism is super broad, though. Oh, gotcha. Oh, you go picnic, or you go Nick. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, I haven't seen any of his videos. I've seen him on Twitter. That's my thing. My social media presence, guys, is so low. It's so bad. I have such a low count of. This is also another problem that I find that's a little bit limiting. It's a little bit limiting to how I approach this. I don't have a very profitable, like, I don't have a growth is a little bit extra hard for me because I try to stay away from sort of spectacle like meme stuff, or I try to, like, there's sort of a postmodern element to how we approach politics at times, or philosophy. It turns into something like constant memeing. And in my mind, it's sort of a weird neo-nihilistic thing. Then it turns into just spectacle, or that it takes itself too seriously at that point, and it becomes rigidly ideological. I try not to exist in those terrains, but people like both of those terrains. Like, it's very nice when you are, like, an explicit Marxist, and so when people see that Marxist symbolism, it translates well financially, I've noticed a lot of the times. Yeah. So. Yeah, base Epoch philosophy wants to be free from the sad internet passions. I think so. I think that's right. Can't reply directly on mobile, but yeah, I feel like in the same boat. There is a sort of MLM pipeline. They don't seem to. Yeah, it's an approach to theory that is so narrow. It is so narrow. Bosch says he'll talk to anyone. Just got to set it up through email. Gotcha. Well, do I reach out to him? I don't know. Okay. Trying to. I've not read Fang Numina. I'm interested, but I hear it's wild. It's crazy. I gotta get through Deleuze before I get to Nick Land. Oh, I do remember the weird stuff. I was on YouTube at that point. Well, I never made content, but yeah, 2015 through like 2017 was not good. Not good. His email is open. Vosh Vidya at Gmail. Gotcha. All right. I'll send him an email. You guys ought to do the same if it's gonna get any, because I have a feeling if I send him an email, he won't answer it, I'm sure. I think that's the thing, though. I don't even want to talk about what Vosh thinks about things, like, politically in that regard. Like, the discussions itself become far too alienating. Benjamin Noyes attacked Mark Fisher as left Nietzschean a few days ago, but did you watch it? I did not. Cold Feet Vosh won't debate Epoch philosophy. Yeah, he's gonna get destroyed by me. I'm gonna destroy Vosh. No, if I ever played, like, if I was ever interested, this is also another thing. If you actually do care, here's the thing, Vosh is not stupid. Like, Vosh is very, like, quite, like, he debates for a living. Just because you win a debate doesn't mean you're necessarily right? The last thing I'd ever want to do if I was concerned with, if I was trying to tout my own ideology, or like, oh, like, you know, if I'm a Marxist-Leninist, I'm gonna go debate Vosh and destroy him. That's the worst thing you could do. Like, that's the fucking worst thing you could do. What the fuck? Like, yeah, I'm so radically disinterested in debate in that regard. I know I say that probably a million times, but yeah, I would love to talk to him about maybe, look, I don't even, but here's the thing. If I say this, is it going to go on deaf ears? Here's another thing. I get accused of esotericism by people who are really into politics. Like, that's another thing. A lot of people, I notice this is a thing, people who are into theory and philosophy, uh, they're like, yeah, but this just seems like esoteric mumbo jumbo and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck, man? It's only esoteric mumbo jumbo because you don't know, like, and I even if I try to explain it within like really simple terms, they're like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. And I'm like, this is just, you're just saying this to sound smart. I'm like, oh my fucking god. And so it's like, sometimes it's not even like, it's whatever. I guess you got to take those chances though, right? Even though it, you know, it's a potential stressor, because that's what happens to me anytime I go on like or do anything within the form like of politics and collaborate, it's just me getting shit on 24/7. And I lie if I say that it doesn't bother me after some time. I'd be a complete fucking liar. It does. And I think the thing, it doesn't bother me, it's that they dislike me. It bothers me that like I'm unable to convey the importance of what I'm trying to say. And sometimes that can make me feel pretty insufficient. Like, fuck, am I doing a, you know, like, I know I shouldn't worry about that stuff, but it is, I guess I'm human. Esoteric should never be an insult. I think depending on the context, maybe, right? Like, there's some people, who was that dude that like, that talked about like cells being conscious against Richard Dawkins? I don't know if you guys remember, that was a long time ago. Some dude who was like, I can't remember, but it's super, there are people who are overly esoteric and they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but pandering to teens. I came to theory YouTube via channels like Secular Talk. Oh, okay. You're right. You are right. You are so right. Same. In a way, I did too. One of the first political channels I really watched was Secular Talk. I watched Kyle Kalinske a long time. I think Kyle Kalinske is just... he has the thing, he's like, I don't want to hear theory. I want to see concrete results. I'm like... I think Kyle Kalinske just does his thing, and I don't think he wants to do anything outside of that. But I really enjoyed... I got into politics a lot from people like Kyle Kalinske. That's true. That's very true, though, Kate. I remember Fisher blog post where he blames Deleuze for giving legitimacy to hippie vitalist non-speak. Ooh. Did he? Is that right? But yes, there is hippie vitalist non-speak sort of shit. That is the esotericism that I might refer to. Am I what does that mean? Hungry, though? God, I'm such a fucking boomer. Is this, like, online stuff? He likes Chomsky a lot, though. Yeah, I like Chomsky. I think Chomsky's a nice little decent approach to theory. Like a little introduction. Nothing metaphysical or anything. It's like sort of political theory, maybe? I don't know. I don't know if I'd call Chomsky really all too theoretical, but you know. I hate when people, like, again, I don't like rating theorists. I hate it. It's stupid. It's like, people are like, Chomsky's a middling theorist. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. I kind of get what you mean. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of do. You know what I mean? Like, he's, like, not as in-depth as people like Deleuze or anything like that. One of the most annoying things that I saw, though, that really... And it's not because I like Mark Fisher. I really do like Mark Fisher, but it's not because I gotta protect Mark Fisher at all costs. Fuck no. I don't care about that. J.M. Offwad Paul went on a huge spree like a couple of weeks ago talking about how Mark Fisher is a piss-poor thinker and shit. I'm like, you are such a fucking... Like, anyone's a piss-poor thinker, like, who thinks outside of just fucking, like fucking this weird... really weird narrow form of Marxism that he talks about. It's I fucking can't stand. You're not supposed to. The point isn't to rate. The point isn't which is the best theorist and shit like that. What is ironically more liberal than that, right? And so he shits on liberalism more than, man, we've fucking, I don't know. That is, what is that other than a competitive, non-cooperative streak of how you should approach theory, right? Theory is something that, again, you dig and you mine for gold. You try to, philosophy, you try to find good things and you throw out the things that aren't good and you make those critiques. The goal isn't to rate them and tell people not to read them or to read them. You take them for their specific ideas. The goal, it doesn't matter. It's not to personalize individual thinkers. It is a fucking terrible idea. It's the worst thing you could do with someone like Marx, too. Yeah, you don't have to marry the thinkers. The whole point. Oh boy. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't agree with them. I mean, that's sort of that's what really well, and I read J. Mafwad Paul's Continuity and Rupture, and it's just the ironic thing that he was like, okay, J. Mafwad Paul was talking about how like Mark Fisher, guys, oh my god, guys. J. Mafwad Paul was like, yeah, he takes a lot from like who was it? Jameson. And I think he briefly mentioned that like Jameson's sort of lib but Jameson was certainly, he said this, certainly more of a rigorous thinker than Mark Fisher. I'm like, what the fuck is, like, what? Like, what? Like, I read his book Continuity and Rupture. Like, there's nothing rigorous about Continuity and Rupture. It's the most unrigorous read in the world. It's not necessarily bad. Continuity and Rupture, if anything, he's trying to explain dialectics in a material sense. That's the entire fucking book. That's it. What the fuck? If anything, Mark Fisher's thought is far more rigorous than J. Mafwad Paul. It's far more. Like, if you really want to go there and you want to rate, Mark Fisher talks about things in such a deeper context than J. Mafwad Paul. J. Mafwad Paul's approaching everything through the very same narrow parameter of, like, dialectical materialism. And that entire book he was trying to explain it. What the fuck does that mean? What? It's stupid as fuck. This is exactly, again, I have problems with fucking a lot of Marxists. I'm so disinterested with people who are completely obsessed with defending Marxism too. The goal isn't to completely defend Marxism. The goal of Marxism is to fucking, in some ways, fucking point out its goddamn contradictions. Mark Fisher hated MLs. Oh yeah, no shit. I don't, yeah, I didn't know that, but...
Esotericism is what workers need to know in order to support socialism instead of obeying capitalist propaganda.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much. That means a ton, man. Always super generous, dude. That means a ton. The esotericism is what workers need to know in order to support socialism instead of obeying capitalist propaganda. I think if esotericism is something more broad, right? Something modes of thought, like modes of thinking, forms of thinking, you know, yeah, absolutely. I think this is why we need to incorporate a lot of different things in philosophy and theory. Absolutely. It's not good enough to approach things in the same form in which we do that, right? It needs to change, right? Jameson does write bangers. Jameson is wonderful. Jameson is, it makes perfect sense why Fisher was so influenced. And Fisher has some of his same ideas, but he's an articulator, right? Like, fucking J. Mafwad Paul's a goddamn articulator. What the fuck? This is fucking stupid. I don't know, that really, like, when I read that, I was like, dude, this is one of the most stupid, like, this is so bad. And people were like, there was, like, other accounts, like, quoting it. They were like, this is insanely bad. Like, this is a moral outrage that, like, people are returning to Mark Fisher. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this? J. Mafwad Paul is an articulator of sorts, and that's fine. That's good. Mark Fisher isn't out to replace your dear Marx, my dude. But yeah, he is an articulator of Jameson in some ways, and he has some unique ideas, but Mark Fisher isn't really like a fucking, like, I don't know, like, yeah, he's accessible. Like, that's the best way. Capitalist Realism is a great book to give someone as a starter. Absolutely. That's why he's one of my favorites in some ways. Debate J. Mafwad Paul. I will not debate J. Mafwad Paul. Hell no. Absolutely not. I am so disinterested with that. I mean, like, I guess, I mean, no. I can't. Not that. No way. I do not like how conservatives worship the founding fathers. Oh, absolutely. Late Marxism calls for a utopia of misfits and oddballs where neurotics. Interesting, huh? I really need to dive more into Jameson. I really do think Jameson is a bit of an. I think Jameson gets a little bit. I think we brush him under the table a little bit too much. I really do. I think Jameson's fairly significant. I think what he says is quite good. This is why I'm still like things such as subjectivity, philosophical or theoretical subjectivity are so important, right? Like, it's not good enough in my mind just to look at things from a concrete sort of constructive structural context, right? Like where the how institutions operate, right? There are subjective, perceptible experiences that people have that have some uniformity, and giving clarity and context to these unique situations that ironically are somewhat universal is important. Like, that's good. That's not lib shit. I think Jameson or J. Moffwad Paul also, one thing I wildly disagreed with what he said was, I think in Continuity and Rupture at the part, he said he's correct with this, so correct. We have moved away from a sort of class-orientated analysis in a political context into a more identitarian a more identity political based thing. That's correct. And if we're going to approach politics as politics, it should be more class-orientated, 100% there. That said, he says that Marxism has been hijacked by liberals. In a sense, I think it's sort of the thesis of what he was saying, I believe. I could go back. I could go grab it. I think it's right up there. I could go grab it and see, but essentially that like neo-Marxism is just more liberalized Marxism. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, what? That liberalism doesn't fucking mean. Not only does liberalism not mean anything online, even to fucking academics, it doesn't fucking mean anything. It's stupid. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. I think what J. Moffwad Paul is good at is I think J. Moffwad Paul, at the end of the day, he sort of is able to I think he legitimizes the sort of cultural militaristic approach to Marxism. And it's sort of a libidinal, it's sort of like a pleasureful thing for people who read him. I think it really, it gets them, like, it's a reinforcement of prior ideas, which is ironic because he talks about, he shit on people for, like, not being, like, original thinkers. There's nothing original about that if you're reinforcing things, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. Like, you know. Go in, homie. Yeah, I don't. This is how my streams go, man. Constantly trying to reproduce subsistence. Yeah. Well, guys, I am super happy to be back. I was super happy to do a stream. I think we're on the 2-hour mark. I think I'm probably going to. Mao is the same way. Reading him gives you the owning the libs jouissance. It's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well. Not necessarily. So Continuity and Rupture, I haven't read anything else. I have, and I will read his, he has a Demarcation, Demystification, I believe. And I need to read that. No, Continuity and Rupture is mainly, sort of just like an explanation of dialectical materialism. Like, that's really it. He talks a little bit about, again, how we need to return to revolutionary Marxism and how Marxism has been liberalized through like neo-Marxist or the postmodernist from Foucault and Deleuze, and it's just baldly idealist. He's sort of describing dialectical materialism, historical materialism, understanding how dialectics work in a material sense. He uses examples of like physics and how it's unscientific to be purely a Newtonian at this point rather than incorporating Einstein's approach. That's sort of the ethos of that book. But then he goes into detail about why Maoism's necessary and why, he goes into dogma, a lot of those things. It's more of an elaboration on it, like a sort of a philosophical thing. as is to add clarity, I guess. But the book was fine. I just find that like J. Moffwad Paul, his like, I don't know. I'm not a fan. But yeah. All right, guys. I appreciate all you guys. I think I'm probably gonna head on out of here. I haven't eaten anything today. I need to go eat some food. Yeah, we'll have another stream soon. I want to set something up, guys. I want to get like Eric from the Pill Pod on, the semiotics man and semiology dude. I would really like to talk to. I've talked to almost everyone from the Pill Pod except Eric. I have, and I need to get Eric on. I'm a fan of the Pill Pod. I quite like it. I love Plastic Pills. Plastic Pills is awesome. All right, guys. So I think that's it. Again, as always, I give the same spiel at the end of the streams. I couldn't do any of this without patrons. Seriously, any of you guys who help out just a couple dollars a month, it does keep all of this alive. I'm working really hard on our next video right now. It's taken a long time. It's really like I had to be a little bit more creative with this video, and it was tough for me. So it's taken a long time to get out, but Patreon is absolutely necessary, especially when I can't pump out content all the time. It keeps all of this going. The join section down below, the YouTube join section, helps a ton as well. However, you would like to support, hopefully, I have enough perks that you guys enjoy. I have some exclusive content. You guys can vote on future videos, all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's completely necessary how we keep all of this alive. David, again, I'm going down the list. Thank you again for the donations, my dude. I appreciate that a ton. It means the world to me. But yeah, that's it, guys. Other than that, again, I also say, if you guys shop on Amazon, if you don't shop on Amazon, don't do it because I'm telling you to. Amazon fucking blows. But if you're like me, I still shop on Amazon. It's just, I can't escape it. But if you do, consider bookmarking our link. It gives me just like a small percentage of what you buy and helps out a little bit. But that is all for today, guys. I appreciate all you guys. I really do. I'm gonna get back to get another stream in sometime soon. Hopefully, I can get Eric on or Victor, someone else on. But thank you guys so much. Appreciate all you. I will see you later. Also, I will probably contact Bosch. You guys should do the same. If you guys want to see me on there, I'll do the same. And I'll hope that it doesn't go badly. I hope I don't get death threats. I hope I don't disrupt the political jouissance, the pleasure. I hope I don't disrupt the flow of meaning, of online meaning in people's lives. But yeah, so I'll see you guys later. Actually, that's actually exactly what I want to do. But anyways,